What if I said, not all rom-coms are chick flicks? Would you believe me? The simple fact is, not all rom-coms are chick flicks. And not all rom-coms are as sappy and cheesy as some of the more popular ones would have you believe. Sometimes, rom-coms can have a bigger plot line than just the will they won't they aspect. Sometimes, there is a main plot that follows the main character and their growth through heroic actions or misadventures. Within that main character's storyline, though, sometimes there's a second plot, a B-plot if you will, where throughout our hero or anti-hero's journey, a blooming romantic relationship slow burns and blossoms by the end. So for anyone that doesn't like too much cheese in their cheesy romance movies, or if you like films that are rom-com light and you still want to find a good compromise with your partner who loves rom-coms, today we are talking about some of the more unconventional rom-coms that cross genres, blend elements of comedy, and tie in a romantic story at its core. So for all of my people out there who want to find a good rom-com-ish movie without feeling like you're watching a rom-com movie, cheers to y'all, because I've got just the list for you. It's all the rom-com, none of the calories. Think rom-com light. So whether it's for Valentine's Day or just a nice date night in movie, grab a drink, grab a notepad, and let's get right into this list of my top 5 unconventional rom-coms. In the 90s, Pauly Shore rose to popularity in the days when MTV was known for their music videos more than their reality shows. Shore was a comedian at this time, and it was while he was in his prime as a video DJ on MTV, Hollywood started knocking on his door for him to take the Weasel persona to the big screen. Most of his movies were all situational comedy films where he fumbles his way to save the day at the end. These included Jury Duty, Encino Man, and In the Army Now. But it was the movie Son-in-Law that kicked off this trend and put Shore on the forefront and center of everyone's minds who wasn't sure if he could be the leading man in a movie. Son-in-Law tells the story of a small-town girl named Becca going to college in the big city and adjusting to her new life there. When Becca decides to visit her family back home for Thanksgiving, she takes Crawl, aka Shore, with her and presents him as her new fiance to avoid having to deal with her ex. It's during this time where Shore shines through with his comedic antics sprinkled in, answering the question, how would a big city boy do in a small town setting? As opposed to most rom-coms where the characters have a meet-cute moment, or a movie where a long-term couple has a boring relationship and has some misadventure that brings them closer together, this movie instead leans on the romantic cliche of opposites attract. There is a very slow burn thread of romance between Becca and Crawl with a will they won't they plotline built in, and tons of comedy around it, and turns out to be a real feel-good story by the end. If you haven't seen this or just haven't seen it in a while, definitely add this to your date night watch list and get ready for all the early 90s feels. Dave is very much a loose telling of the story of the Prince and the Pauper. A twist on the take, what would you do if you could swap places with someone? Dave tells the story of President William H. Mitchell leading the country by day and looking for a double of himself to make a media appearance so he can sneak off to have an affair on his wife by night. Dave is a small-town do-gooder, but also moonlights as a character version of the president for events within his town. Dave is brought in to be the president's double to allow the president's ruse to occur. During the president's evening rendezvous, President Mitchell has a massive stroke, and Dave is secretly placed by cabinet members in the role of president since he bears such a striking resemblance to the actual president. Both roles are of course played by Kevin Kline, who does a great job playing dual roles and mostly one throughout the duration of this movie. While Dave struggles with all the new responsibility and tries to manage his own identity through it all, the First Lady, played by Sigourney Weaver, begins to take a fancy to Dave. Again, the romance element is a bit of a slow burn build, but because this movie takes its time to build this romance, it adds to the believability of it all. This 1993 flick went under a lot of people's radar, and Weaver and Kline have some amazing chemistry together even when their characters are feisty with one another. If you're looking for a movie that blends great acting with politics and has a rom-com plotline mixed in, I think you found your winner. A movie that's been described as Rocky with lances is perhaps one of the last films you would think would be an unconventional rom-com, but what's a night without his fair lady? The premise of this unusual rom-com puts William Thatcher, played by Heath Ledger, in a position where he's given the chance to pass as a false nobleman so he can participate in jousting tournaments for money for him and his friends to survive. It's not without plenty of obstacles along the way and a hilarious training montage, but also very early on he meets a fair maiden, and the two have their own romantic thread that builds and also includes a fun dance number to David Bowie. This movie has the sport triumph feel-good vibe that is universal to anyone who's watched a Rocky movie or Remember the Titans. But by adding the romantic story element, it adds even more weight into really fleshing out William Thatcher's character growth. We not only want him to win every duel against elites, but we also want him to get the girl at the end of the day because he's just a relatable guy trying to win against the powers that be. We all love that story. Also, this movie really does have an all-star cast and is full of actors whose careers really took off after this movie, including the late Heath Ledger, Alan Tudyk, Mark Addy, Paul Bettany, Shannon Sossamon, and Rufus Sewell. If you're a fan of the legacy of Heath Ledger or a fan of sports movies, medieval movies, or rom-com movies, this movie does a tremendous job of blending these three worlds seamlessly together. You don't have to wait till date night to watch this one, so definitely add this to your year-round list. These next two are super highly unconventional rom-coms, so just hear me out and you can comment me later. Regarded by some to be the best movie ever made, and for most it's in their list of top 5 to 10 movies of all time, North by Northwest is a 1959 Alfred Hitchcock movie. Now I know most people only think Hitchcock did scary movies or suspense thrillers, and this one was kind of like that, but not at the same time. The movie stars Cary Grant, who, rest in peace to this guy, because he was just an incredible actor that most people nowadays have no knowledge of. The charm, the swagger, the mid-Atlantic accent, but I digress. Grant plays Roger Thornhill, an advertising agent who's mistaken for the mysterious George Kaplan, and thus he begins his misadventures of running away from spies who want to kill him and running away from the cops after being framed for murder. This sounds like a perfect rom-com, right? Well, not quite. That is until he meets Eve, played by the stunning Eva St. Marie.
He went that way. I think he got off.
Thank you.
It's quite all right.
7 parking tickets.
Oh.
And what follows after their first encounter is some of the best rom-com dialogue that has yet to be replicated to this day.
The moment I meet an attractive woman, I have to start pretending I've no desire to make love to her.
What makes you think you have to conceal it?
She might find the idea objectionable.
Then again, she might not.
Think how lucky I am to have been seated here. Oh, you're that type.
What type?
Honest. Is that a proposition?
I never discuss love on an empty stomach.
You've already eaten.
But you haven't.
While the plot is essentially a man trying to clear his name, mixed in with suspenseful action scenes like the famous plane in the field sequence, this movie is full of quick, quippy comedy one-liners that will catch you off guard.
Say, do I look heavyish to you?
What?
I feel heavyish. Put a note on my desk in the morning. Think thin. Who's Townsend? Really? Interesting.
Stop!
Oh, excuse me.
Stop.
As for the romantic section, once Thornhill meets Eve, all of the sparks fly, and he sets his sights not only to clear his name, but also to woo her and keep her safe from the encroaching dangers surrounding them. It's essentially a rom-com movie overshadowed by the fact its suspenseful scenes are what's made its way to pop culture, but best believe this is a genre blend of rom-com and suspense, all wrapped in one movie. This film, much like the last, is also on many critics' lists of top 5 movies of all time, and once you see this movie, you'll definitely understand why. Set in 1941 during World War II and taking place over 3 days, the story follows Rick Blaine, played by the great Humphrey Bogart, an American stuck in Casablanca, Morocco. Not being able to leave because of German influence in the country, and not being able to return home to America, he starts and runs a bar called Rick's Cafe and gains local influence. When the love of his life, Ilsa, played amazingly by Ingrid Bergman, returns after standing him up years ago, it's revealed she has a husband, and they are both seeking letters of transit Rick possesses so they can flee before they are arrested by the German army. Will Rick help? Is he too scorned? Or will he try to woo Ilsa away from her husband and run away with her? The ending is one of the most heartfelt moments ever captured on film. But what about the comedy? Much like North by Northwest, the comedy is delivered in quippy one-liners and small situational bits. Not just by Rick, but by a plethora of the rest of the amazing cast, including Claude Rains, Sidney Greenstreet, Peter Lorre, and Dooley Wilson, who plays Sam.
How can you close me up? On what ground?
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Everybody out at once.
What is your nationality?
I'm a drunkard.
And that makes Rick a citizen of the world.
Where were you last night?
That's so long ago, I don't remember.
Will I see you tonight?
I never make plans that far ahead.
The song, as time goes by, brings all the feels to warm your heart every time you hear it. The nationalism of the French anthem Les Marseillaise being sung against the German anthem and overpowering it as the people are being occupied brings a sense of hope against the oppression. And the gentle wittiness of Rick gives this film the humor it needs to flesh out a well-rounded character who we thought was just a hard-ass, but turns out, like all of us, is just a man trying to protect his own heart. It is for all these reasons and so much more that this is truly an unusual and unorthodox rom-com. While the film is in black and white, I think that part really adds to the overall feel and world building of this movie. So if black and white films bother you, this would be one I would say suck it up and enjoy a piece of highly regarded historic cinema. It's also my favorite movie of all time, so just gonna add that in there at the end. Sorry, not sorry. What did you think of this list? Had you seen some of these, or will you be watching any of these for an upcoming date night? Also, after seeing my list, what are some films that you think are unconventional rom-coms that you would add to it? Drop all your thoughts in the comments, and if there's a solid list going, I may just do a part 2. I really appreciate you for coming along this ride with me, so be sure to come back around. You don't have to subscribe, but stop by here and there and say hi. And if you like this rom-com breakdown, be sure to check out my reaction to 10 Things I Hate About You, and look out for my list of the top 5 rom-coms coming out real soon. Feel free to follow me at Money Blakeweather on all the social medias. Stay safe. Be sure to get all your Valentine's Day shopping done. And until the next one, I will see ya. Peace.